3, 2, 1, go.
Alright, so here's how to make a hand in Nomad Sculpt. Cartoon hand. So first, I'm just going to add a new sphere that's a little bit smaller than the default sphere. And we'll use Gizmo, and we just want to make the palm area, so we'll just make it flat. So I'll turn it so we're looking to the left side, and I'll just kind of flatten this up. We can go ahead and validate it. So palms are usually a little more stretched. They're not really super round. So I'm going to take move. You see I have symmetry on. I'm going to turn symmetry or show line, so then we can see what the tool is going to affect. So now we see the two dots. It's going to be left side and right side. Let's also do front and back as well. So we'll go to symmetry and we'll click Z as well. So now you see it's front and back and left and right. So we'll just use the move tool. And we'll just make it a little more, or a little less round. There you go, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's add another sphere in this area, and this will help us with our thumb. So let's rename this palm. Let's add a new sphere, and we'll just name it thumb for now. We can validate, and then we'll take our gizmo, we'll move it around here, and sometimes I give it a little stretch and then twist it. Something like this. So this is essentially going to be this round piece of the thumb, and then we just have to do this part that comes up and curves. If you turn to the side, you can always kind of shrink it and then pull it up a little bit to the front. So now we use the tube tool, and we'll go over here and hit path, and we don't need snap. So we just need to put the stem and then a little bend in it. So of course now with the tube tool you have to touch down and then bring it all the way to the end, like so. You can go ahead and add a new node in the middle, kind of curve it, and then hit this green dot. So let's look from the side, it looks pretty good. And if you wanted to make it a little more anatomically correct, just take the gizmo. Let's give it a little turn this way. Because when you look at your thumb, it's always going to be in front, kind of in front of the palm a little bit. So we'll go back to the little tube settings and we'll make it a little bit bigger. So we have one node here, but we want to be able to adjust all three individually. So let's tap radius twice so that there's 3 little orange lines there. So we'll make this side bigger, and then we just want to marry it up to the palm. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we can just move these over using the white nodes. You can kind of adjust your thumb, and sometimes it needs a little bit more of curves, so I might just add a new node like that, just to give it a little more curve. You can make that a little bit bigger too, and now you have this nice line here. So we need to make this round. So we'll tap these 3 dots, and we'll bring the post subdivision up to 3. Let's tap this and bring that to 4. Actually, no, let's bring it to 5. I think 5 is a little bit better. So you can see it's much more round now. But I'm going to uncheck this little link, and I'm going to bring this to 5 as well. So now you just have to adjust the sizes a bit. It's like a pretty good thumb. It still needs a little bit of a difference in size. So I added a new node there, and I'll kind of squeeze this and then I'll make the thumb a little bit bigger. Okay, so you can adjust the sizes as you need, but that's essentially how we do the thumb. So now let's add some other fingers, and we'll kind of do it the same way. We'll use tube, and I'll just essentially show you one, and then once you have one, you can just clone that for the other fingers. So we're using tube, we use path, and let's do pointer finger. Tap here, and interestingly enough, it seems to maintain the topology. So now we have two tubes. This is the thumb. I'm not sure if that's a setting on mine, but it maintains the same exact topology, which is helpful. So I'll just get rid of these by dragging them into each other so we can, there we go. So now we have like a flat finger, so we can kind of just place it with the gizmo where we need it. So that'll be here, down a little bit. And notice that it's hard to move it just left and right. You can always hit align and move it left and right, or front and back. Okay, I think that's pretty good. So I'll go back to the tube settings. We'll make this a little bit fatter down there. Now let's say we want this finger and the pinky to be out, kind of like the horns kind of thing. So we'll kind of do it the same way. We'll add a little node so we can give it some a little curve. It's not bad. I would like it to be a little more round, so let's just go back into these settings and see if we can get it to be a bit more round. That's kind of nice. So let's clone this and we'll bring it over to, tap the gizmo right there. We'll bring it over to the end where the pinky should be. Let's take it off of a line. So let's see, pivot, center, pivot sometimes helps a little bit. You can also tap pivot and adjust this to make it easier to move your fingers. So we hit pivot again, and now we've just like changed the pivot. So let's hit front so we can get a good idea of where we want these fingers to be. I might need to take this palm and sort of move it up a little bit. Slide this over. And this is probably the more difficult thing about hands, is the position of everything. So that's a little bit better. The hand is moving straight up. Later on, I might have to tilt the whole thing this way. It's a little bit slanted. So let's take this pinky and shrink it a bit, because the pinky is always smaller. And let's bend it a little bit. Okay, so now we have those two fingers like that. Let's go ahead and clone this. So we'll clone this finger, move it over. Now these are going to be curved. So I'm going to go ahead and place them. Let's do pivot, center, pivot. Okay. So we'll place it here. We'll go back to the tube settings, and then we're just going to curve it over. And again, you might need to add an extra node to get it to curve the way that you want. Making them a little bit thinner on the base, maybe. Okay, that looks pretty good. Oh, here's another random thing that I often do, is I push the palm let's go to symmetry and take it off of Z and just push the palm a bit. Maybe even pull the back a little bit. Just because the palm is usually like sort of like a bowl. Hands are kind of like a bowl. So that's just another thing that I usually do with my hands. And it might take some time to kind of get the spacing and things right. But that's the kind of thing that, you know, if you draw hands, that's the kind of thing that you learn from drawing hands and just doing a lot of hands. So give yourself some time to kind of get that right, because it can be tricky. Okay. All right, that looks good. So let's go ahead and clone it. And we'll use the little hidden gizmo and we'll move it over. A lot of times you don't want them to be exactly symmetrical with each other. So I'll just take the gizmo, let's do pivot, center, pivot, and we'll just kind of move it down a little bit. And you can go back and maybe like squeeze it up to the end, take this one and maybe so I'm going to add another node here. Just to make the base a little bit smaller. So I'm going to take this hand, I'm going to turn symmetry off and just kind of pull it a little bit over this thumb a bit. So now we need to deal with each individual finger to make it how we want it to look. So we can go ahead and validate the fingers. If you're really happy with it, you can go ahead and validate the fingers. Okay, just make sure everything is validated. Good. So let's take this finger first, and we want them to be even rounder at the edges. So I like to use move and just make it really small. And I just pull up the end, because unfortunately there's no like sure way to get the fingers round, or at least as round as I want, which is unfortunate. So I could add like a sphere to the end, but most of the time I just do this. Just make sure it's nice and round. Even make it bigger. Maybe I'll just squish this a little more together. Looks pretty good. So they're nice and round. Almost forgot the thumb. Pull the base of the thumb up a little bit, just so it's a little flatter. Okay, so now I'm just going to voxel remesh all of these and then smooth it. The only reason I'm voxel remeshing is because if you smooth, sometimes we can lose too much shape. So let's give it a quick save. So that's why I voxel remesh first. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, maybe like 145 or so. So we'll stay in that general vicinity and just voxel remesh these. Okay, oh, this looks good. So I'm going to smooth out each individual one. A lot of the difficult part is really the anatomy. Even though it's a cartoon hand, it's really easy for these things to kind of look wrong. That's why I sort of leave in a lot of my adjustments, because they are important, you know what I mean? And if all else fails, just look at your own hand. Look at the shapes of your hand and how everything curves. See how flat this part is? It's very flat. So a lot of times you can sort of mimic that. Real life is really how you learn. So definitely like practice drawing hands and things like that. If we look at the side of our palms, this is straight. This is straight and then it goes over. So if we look at this, you can see how this is not really lining up. So that's when I might go in with move and take symmetry off and just kind of straighten this out a bit. And you can even take all these fingers and just kind of shift them. You know, if I look here, this is straight as well, and then it just goes into the thumb. Whereas here I have this part which looks a bit funny. So again, I'll just take move, and I'll just move that in. And this looks a bit big. So same thing, I'll just take the gizmo and just kind of flatten it a little bit. And then I'll just take the thumb and I'll just sort of move it, adjust it to follow. Okay, so let's do a quick save. Okay, so we can now voxel remesh this and make it one solid hand. So let's voxel remesh the pinky, the pointer finger, and all of the thumb. So now we have to find what we need. So these two, the palm, this finger, and the pinky. So everything except for these two fingers. We'll do a quick save, and then we'll voxel remesh them at, we'll do it at like 200. And I'm just using a shortcut down here. Voxel remesh is also here in voxel. So it's the same. You see the numbers move on both. So now that they are together, we can go ahead and smooth what we have. Just make it look nice. 200 is a good resolution size where you get fairly fairly solid model, but still able to smooth it and make adjustments. So you just want to smooth it until it's picture perfect. I think that looks good. So now we have these two fingers, and I did shrink this one, so I'm going to shrink this one as well. I'll shrink it a little bit this way too. You can make any, adjustments that you might want to make. Don't ever be afraid of making more and more adjustments. Okay, looks good in the back. So now we want to smooth, we're going to need to voxel remesh this fairly high. So we'll do another quick save, because I saved before I voxel remesh. Whoops. And let's do a voxel remesh around let's do it around 400. And just see how it looks. Oh, I forgot to tell you what we're going to voxel remesh. Everything. So we'll do 400, I'll do 450. Remesh. Okay, that's not so bad. This is the part that I really don't like as much, but there's really no way around it, unfortunately. So we'll smooth out the back parts. Now we do have a little bit of a crease in the middle, but I still think it looks really good. You can always add a torus. Kind of move it on the bottom. And you have the little Mickey / hamburger helper character. I always think of the hamburger helper character. We'll use a tube. We'll validate that. We'll use a tube. Have your hand. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you how I do hands. Like everything, I mean, I wish it was more simple. But as you start using the tubes and you get used to the values and a method to smooth them, as you can see, you can make really great hands, really good cartoon hands. But yeah, I think that's about it. Let me know if you have any comments or questions, or if you just want to say what's up, give me a like, check out my Patreon. A lot of my 3D sculpts I put on my Patreon. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.
Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy, so if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again, keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.